So as I mentioned earlier in the week, last week we were working on that paver installation job where we were laying down the base material and compacting it and laying down the geotextile fabric, excavating and things like that. And because of weather, we unfortunately had to halt that project until it gets warmer. But in the meantime, we decided to focus more on practicing actually finishing the job on little paver plots that were designed for practicing. And so that's where we were working for the rest of the week. These are just small, 5 by 5 or 10 by 10 little plots, and the base material has already been laid down and compacted. So we just practice putting in edge restraints, bedding sand, leveling it out, putting the pavers in, and then compacting it all and making it look good. So let's get into it. To begin, what you want to do is you want to lay down the edge restraints. And you don't, if you're doing, for example, we were doing boxes, you don't want to just do a box and lay all 4 edges down, because you want to make sure that you have room to put sand in and take sand out. And I'll explain that in a little bit. But you want to put edge restraints along some of or at least a corner of the bed, and that allows for sand to be pushed up against it and kind of leveled from there. So once you lay down the sand in piles, you want to get pipes long enough to be in the bed, and you want them 1 inch in diameter. So metal pipes work just fine, they're heavy enough. What you want to do is you lay those pipes down in the bed, and then you get this thing called a screed, which is it's essentially just a big flat metal tool that you use to slide along the top. And what it does is it rests on those pipes and it slides along, and it's level with the pipes, and the pipes are 1 inch tall. So it gives you a perfect 1 inch layer of bedding sand, which is perfect. It's exactly what you need. The process is called screeding. Hence the name for the tool is screed. You can also use like a wood plank or a 2x4. There's a number of tools you can use, but the screed is most common and it's most durable and reliable. So after you've screeded the bedding sand, and it's nice and level throughout, you want to take the pipes out and then kind of with a trowel smooth out the rest of it, so that the bedding sand is not only 1 inch thick, but it's also as level as possible. Because then you'll start placing pavers. And depending on the type of paver and the type of pattern you're doing, will determine how you lay the pavers. So you pretty much want to start from one edge and then go forward with the pavers. And as you can see, there's groups of us, and we had different patterns we were doing and working with different pavers. And so using the edge restraint and coming up against the edge restraint, we're able to make a nice clean rows of pavers, which was nice. But when you get around to the end of where you want the pavers to be, you'll probably end up needing to cut a few pavers in order to fit into the rest of the space. Because remember, you want the pavers to be tight against each other. So you'll have the edge restraint on one side, and then when you're done laying them and the sand and things like that, you'll get the edge that you want, and then you'll put another edge restraint that's tight against it. And when you put the other edge restraint, when you put any edge restraints, you want to make sure that there isn't sand underneath the edge restraint, because that just leaves gaps between the restraint and the base material. So that will allow for water and other things to flow through, and the bedding sand could leak out from that position. So in order to secure a strong hold on the pavers, the edge restraints need to be free of sand underneath. So when you have found that you need to cut pavers, you'll get a paver saw, essentially, or a concrete saw. This one we have is gasoline powered. You can get them that are electric, lightweight or heavy duty. This one has a little bit more power. And you can't see it in the video, but on top there's just a little spot where you can attach a hose. And a week or two ago I was talking about engineering controls to be safe, to provide safety to the user. So that's one of them. I talked about the silica dust when cutting pavers can be very deadly and cancerous if too much is breathed in. So the hose can be used to spray the blade as it's cutting, and it will keep that dust down instead of blowing like it is in the video. So usually you would want to wear goggles, N95 mask to filter out the particles. Luckily it was a really windy day and we were standing upwind, so the dust blew away, which was nice. So once you have the pavers in and the edge restraints properly in place, what you want to do is the pavers should be pretty tight together. They shouldn't be moving much, but you want to lay more bedding sand. And when you initially put bedding sand in, it's moist so that it compacts better, and that it's easier to manipulate. But the sand you want to put on top is dry sand. It needs to be bone dry. And this is because you want it to go into the cracks, into the joints, and kind of settle and create the firm, compact joints that the pavers need in order to stay strong and retain their strength. As you can see, once you put the bedding sand over, you'll put a layer on and then you'll compact it with a compactor. We're just using the forward vibrating plate here that we used with the compacting the base material, but you can use a larger compactor or a smaller one. Some, depending on the paver type, they make compactor pads that go specifically are for compacting in the final stage on top of the pavers. And the pad pretty much helps protect the pavers so that you don't end up cracking or damaging the paver as you go along with the compactor. And then when you're done, you should have a nice finished project. Due to the limited material we have, and also this being a recurring practice area for other students, we didn't quite cut every paver or finish the job quite, but we did get some experience, which was really nice. So the first pattern is the running bond pattern. It was used with old world pavers is what they're called, so it kind of resembles cobblestone. The second was the basket weave, and those are actually bricks, they're not pavers. That's just a style that you can use, is using bricks instead of pavers. This pattern is called the Mega Arbel pattern, and the Mega Arbel pavers is what, and they're actually thicker and larger, and it may look weird because there isn't a set pattern, but it actually, the purpose of the pattern is to make it look random, like there's random stone, it's more natural, but really there is a pattern. It's kind of like fitting a puzzle together. Each paver goes together a certain way, so that's really unique. Another thing we talked about was molds that you can put on either paver or concrete. It's more for concrete. If you're laying concrete or a retaining wall with concrete, and before it sets you want it to have a certain texture to it, you can add these molds to the edge of it to give it kind of a rough look. So this one, for example, is kind of like a rougher stone look, but they have all kinds of molds that you can use. Like there's wood, there's stone, there's just a number of different molds that you can put on it, and that's you would do that once you pour the concrete and it has set for just a little bit. You'd put a certain treatment powder on it, and then you would put these molds on to help let it set. And usually, like this is just a small sample of one, but usually they're larger, they're black, they're heavy, and that you would put it on the concrete and then you would tap it down a little bit and to set the mold into the concrete. So we learned a lot and we did a lot this week, and hope to continue that into next week. So I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.